Hi, I'm Kathy Quinn with Floriani. Floriani is a division of R&K Distributing, and I want to welcome you to February's Project of the Month class. We have completed our design in our software, and it's now time to stitch it on and to construct our St. Patrick's Day pillowcase. I would like you to take your fabric that is for the cuff of your pillowcase. It will be approximately 44 inches long and 12 inches wide. We are going to press and starch this fabric. The reason I like to starch it is because we are going to use a water-soluble marking pen, one of those blue pens. And if we mark onto the fabric, if it has been starched, we don't ever have to worry about that causing any kind of residual marks or stains on our fabric. We are going to now press our fabric into quarters. So you're going to match raw edge to raw edge, and you're going to press the length of that 44 inches so you have a 6-inch side looking at you. Then you are going to fold that in half, and you're going to press in that center fold. So now it looks like it's 22 inches wide by 6 inches. The next step would be to put on our stabilizer. Now if you look at your fabric, you're going to see that we have a 22-inch piece looking at us. We are going to unfold that, and we are only going to deal with one of the 22 by 12-inch sections, because half of this is the back of our pillowcase cuff. So we've chosen Floriani's Stitch and Wash Fusible because it has some unique qualities. It is partially water soluble and partially fiber. The design we created is a lot of satin stitching lettering. Our shamrocks and our leprechauns do not have outlines around them, so we need a stabilizer that will pull away without stressing any of our stitches. Well, our Stitch and Wash, because of that water soluble portion, when we have finished stitching, we will merely take a damp sponge and place it against our stabilizer, dampening only the stabilizer. You will wait 10 seconds, the water-soluble portion will break down, and then you will be able to pull that stabilizer away very easily from the back of your design. If you have any little pieces left, we're not going to worry about those, because the first time this pillowcase is washed, anything around that design will wash away. Everything underneath the stitches will stay to keep that design stable throughout the life of the pillowcase. We need to mark the center of our design, where we're going to place it. Again, we're only going to be working with the 22-inch section. We are going to mark it on the back on our stabilizer. All of our measurements will be done from a fold. Make sure you're using the fold to measure from rather than the salvage end or a raw edge. This is 22 inches wide at this point that we're working with, but ½ an inch of that is our seam allowance. So we really only have about 21½ inches we're working with. So if we measure from the fold over, we don't risk our design being off center a little bit because we're going to serge off or sew off part of this fabric. So I want you to measure from the center fold the length of the 22 inches. I want you to go down 10 3/4 inches to mark your vertical. Then you are going to measure up from the center fold of the 44-inch width, where on the 22 you're going to measure up 2 inches, and that will give you your horizontal line. So now we have a vertical and horizontal in the 22-inch section. We want to hoop Floriani's Perfect Stick stabilizer. Now Perfect Stick has that same magical quality that Stitch and Wash has. It's partially water soluble, partially fiber, but now we've added a silicone-based adhesive to the top, so it is pressure sensitive sticky. because I don't want to try and hoop this, so I'm going to stick it down. So I will hoop my Floriani's Perfect Stick with paper side up. Then I will take a stiletto, you can use a straight pin or a needle. I will score that paper and I will now pull it away so I can expose that tacky surface. I now mark my center both horizontal and vertical, and I only do a couple of inches vertical and a couple inches horizontal because on my sewing table I have a mat that has very bold inch line markings. So I will line that up, and as you can see that 1-inch grid very easily through that stabilizer. If you do not have a mat, I recommend taking a piece of poster board, marking a horizontal and vertical 90-degree angle, perfect 90-degree angle, with a Sharpie marker, and use that as your hooping station to sit on top of. That way you can keep that visual right in front of you. We have marked our fabric on the back. We also marked the center on the front. I will now match up my vertical and horizontal lines on the back of my stabilizer with the vertical and horizontal line in my hoop. I will press this fabric down with my hands and make sure it's stuck down very nicely to the stabilizer. I'm going to top it with Floriani's Heat and Gone. Now we could have chosen Floriani's water-soluble topping. This is about personal preference in this project. Normally on a cotton, a woven, with no nap or no, like terry or a velour would be, I would normally use a water-soluble topping. But this is going to probably be a gift. So I'm using Heat and Gone, so I won't need to wet this at all to get out any pieces of water-soluble topping, because Heat and Gone goes away with heat. So I will put my Heat and Gone on top, stitch through it. It will pull away. I will pull away all the excess, and then with a dry iron I will just press it, press it, press it. Do not iron it, just press it. And everywhere the sole of that iron touches this product directly, it will vaporize. It won't be stuck on your pillowcase. It won't be stuck to your iron. It goes away just like magic. It is a fantastic product. I want you to put your hoop on your machine, push your magic button, and stitch out your design. You will then remove your hoop from the machine, take your design out of the hoop, and we will now remove our stitch and wash stabilizer and our Heat and Gone from our fabric. So you can see our pillowcase cuff laying here, and I've opened it all up so you can see the full 12 inches. You can see my center line where that we've got our other 22 inches off screen where we can't even look at it. We are now going to fold it back in half, raw edges matching, and I'm going to press it. I want to press it one to get any of my Heat and Gone off the top, and I want to make sure my raw edges match up very nicely. We are now going to trim this down. Most pillowcase cuffs are from 3 to 4 inches wide. Now you certainly can make these as wide as you choose. This one has been measured and done to be finished at 4 inches. So we are going to lay a ruler, and if you notice my ruler laying there, it's 4.5 inches from the folded edge. So the 4.5 inch marks on that folded edge, and I'm going to rotary cut off the other 1.5 inches that's left on the bottom of this cuff. Now the reason I start out with a 12-inch piece, a 1/3 yard for the cuffs, is because a lot of times at fabric stores, when they roll the fabric on the bolt, they do not get the grain line straight, so it gets skewed. So when you match up your fabric to keep your grain line straight, sometimes matching up those salvages, you can be anywhere from 1/4 to 1 inch off in your straightening up. So I always make sure I have a couple of inches to work with so I can cut it off and know that I have a beautiful straight of grain to work with. So I'm going to trim this off to 4.5 inches wide. And now we're going to take the body of our pillowcase. Now this will be 44 inches wide, just like our band. And depending upon what size pillowcase, it's either 3/4 of a yard, 27 inches, or 36 inches long. We are going to place it right side up, and we are going to match right sides together, matching our raw edge. And then I'm going to go to my machine and I'm going to sew this together using a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So we have now sewn it together, and I have straightened it completely out so you can see where it's been sewn, and we are going to press it. And now I want you to notice something. You will notice that my little guy's feet and the word Nathan is facing the body of the pillowcase. I did this because on children's pillowcases, they like to look over and be able to see the designs and read their name. If this were for an adult or I was monogramming it, I would have made sure when I hooped this that the feet were facing the fold, so the name would be facing out. So always think about which direction do I want my design to face. Do I want it in towards the body of the case, or do I want it out on the facing the outside of the pillowcase? Certainly any kind of adult pillowcase or monogram would be facing the opposite direction. Now we are going to, with the right side up, we are going to begin folding the body of the pillowcase up towards the cuff. And you will notice that I have folded it all the way up, and I have now covered the design by rolling that pillowcase body up. And you can see our original seam line where we sewed the cuff to the body of the pillowcase. We will now pull all the raw edges together because we are creating a burrito. The cuff is our tortilla, and the body of the pillowcase is our filling. We are going to go to our machine and we will sew that right on top of the original stitching line. Now if you are uncomfortable winging it, feel free to pin it. I do not like to pin if I don't have to, so if I don't need to, I don't. But certainly feel free to pin this along if that makes you more comfortable. The only thing you need to be careful of is do not catch the body of the pillowcase in your seam line. Now we have sewn it along that line, and we now have a finished burrito. You can see the filling in the burrito. There is the body of my pillowcase rolled up in there. And now I'm going to pull the filling out the end until I've pulled all the filling out of that burrito. You might have to work it a little bit. Remember, you've got 44 inches of length there that you're pulling this body of fabric out of. Once I get it all out, of course I'm going to go press it, and you can now see that we have a beautifully encased seam and we have covered the back of our embroidery. This will also work if you want to use it on collars, waistbands on skirts. It is I learned this method from Margaret Islander, and she does that is for industrial shortcuts to make waistbands and stuff. Our next step is we're going to learn how to make mock French seams for our pillowcase so that we don't have any seam edges showing anywhere on this pillowcase. So the first thing I want you to do is I want you to set your serger up to a 3-thread rolled hem. It must be a rolled hem, very important. So with wrong sides together, the pillowcase is going to be just right side up, look perfect. You are going to serge along the bottom of your pillowcase. We're going to do the bottom seam first. using a 1/2 inch seam allowance, so we're going to cut off and roll that hem on the bottom of the seam of the pillowcase. Now I want you to select a 3 or a 5 groove pintuck foot for your sewing machine. They come anywhere from 3 to 7 groove pintucks. We need a pintuck foot that's somewhere between an 1/8, 1/16 and an 1/8 inch wide to fit on top of this. So a 3 to a 5 groove foot will work perfectly. Put that on your machine. And we are now going to take your pillowcase, turn it out. So now it's right sides together. And you're going to see here in this picture, we're going to have a little bit of we're going to be able to feel that rolled hem through the edge or the bottom of our pillowcase. So I want you to put your finger there and kind of roll that over and put that rolled edge hem right underneath the groove in your pintuck foot to the far right. And you'll see it fits there very nicely. Then I want you to move your needle position over as close as you can without stitching into the rolled hem. And now you are just going to straight stitch sew the length of the bottom of that pillowcase. You will also do the same thing up the side now. You will turn it right sides together. You will serge that long seam. You will turn it back wrong where you've got it wrong right sides together, and then you will use your pintuck foot to finish that seam as well. And you can see how nicely this seam is finished, and it's enclosed. So we have finished our pillowcase. All of our seams are enclosed. We've learned 2 new techniques with this pillowcase. We've got the burrito enclosed seam and the mock French seam. Now this mock French seam is wonderful if you're working with chiffons or fine fabrics and you would normally do a French seam. You can barely tell the difference, and it makes a nice finish for any garment or certainly your pillowcase. I want to thank you for coming to our class today. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you look forward to next